And we're here with Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, pretty excited. Looks like we have NHL hockey coming back in 2021, so pretty pumped. How you doing?
I share in your excitement. I mean, I've been saying this whole time, for months now, we have been back and forth. And what's the NHL doing? What are they thinking? What are they saying? What's the meetings? They want to come back on this date. It's not going to work. When are guys going to come back? And for so long, my friends would send me stuff and be like, "Oh, the NHL's close to back. I think it's coming." And I'd be like, I am not buying into any of this until it's official.
It's from some like Russian website. You can't even click.
Yes.
It's like .il. You're like, no, this isn't true.
It's like a makeshift website from
Yeah,
Slovenia.
it's from WordPress. You're like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
WordPress. But it is official as of Sunday. It is official. The NHL's back. It will start January 13th. 56 games, which is a lot of games in not a lot of time. Great for us. Not so fun for the players with travel and such. But again, they will not be traveling as much. They will, especially the Bruins, who play in this new East division, which we will dive fully into today. We're going to dive, head first into this new division they're in, because there are a lot of new teams. Only one old one. Only one old Atlantic Division team. It's the Sabres. So that's not too bad, actually. That's the one team from the Atlantic.
right.
We'll get into why that might be a bad thing, though, for viewers later on. But it's funny. We sort of oftentimes forget about, how in the East, all the teams are pretty close. Like the East Division, for instance, like the farthest is probably like Buffalo to Washington, D.C., maybe. And that's
Yeah,
not that far. That's like a 2-hour flight, if I'm not mistaken. So it's
yeah,
not that far. It is not that far. And like with Hockey East, for instance, all the teams are close. But we forget that like the rest of the country, especially like the North Division in Canada
yeah.
and, the middle of the Midwest, even the West, there's a lot of travel that we kind of forget about. Like we like, for instance, if you're in the West, St. Louis, for instance, is playing in
Yes.
the West. Minnesota is playing in the West. That is a lot of travel. That is
hmm
a lot of travel when you're going to Anaheim, Arizona, Colorado, LA, Vegas, and San Jose. So that is a lot of travel. So, and same with the Central. There are teams there that are going to be traveling a long ways. The Bruins, luckily, though, do not have to do that. So you play your division 8 times a year. How are we feeling about that?
Well, it's obviously the best plan in place for the NHL just to, avoid any risk with COVID. And as you said, I think in the East, it makes a lot of sense in terms of who the different teams are. It's going to make for some good rivalry by the end of it. I think by the time you get to April and May, I think all these teams are going to hate each other's guts, which is going to make for a pretty riveting first 2 rounds of the playoffs. From the Bruins' perspective, though, it's kind of a tough division to draw in, because I think at first glance you kind of look at some of those teams and you go, "Oh shit!" Like you've got 3 or 4 teams that are have been powerhouses in the East for years now, who are still very good. You have a team like the Rangers, who is definitely on the come up with the amount of talent they have, the amount of young players they have that you expect would take the next step forward this year. So when you kind of weigh that against the Bruins, who again still have a very talented roster, but also have probably more question marks than you expect from a Bruins team going into a season, I think there's clearly that cause for concern in terms of is this a team that's going to easily secure a top 4 spot in this new division? I still think that, other than maybe Philly, I think the Bruins are probably the best overall team, I want to say. I think, there's all those other teams are great and are going to be a tough fight. And even though I think maybe the Bruins maybe finish in the top 2, I still think you're going to have 4 or even 5 teams all kind of crowded near the top once we get to the end of the season. It's just, I think when you view the Bruins, I still think they have the best goalie core amongst that whole group. I mean, we can go kind of team by team if you want to about who stacks up. But even look at like Washington. I think people are you view the Capitals as being kind of the bane of the Bruins' existence, right? But Braden Holtby's not there anymore. Which, granted, he wasn't really even like a starting level goalie last year. Like he was straight up, like he was flat out bad last year.
He was
I think,
horrible. He
yeah, he
was
was
bad.
terrible. But the fact that he's gone, who maybe that tilts the scales a little bit in terms of how the Bruins just can't seem to have Washington's number. That could play a factor into it. The fact that Henrik Lundqvist isn't going to play for the Capitals this year, which is a bad break for both him and the team. So it's going to be a lot of, reps for a guy like Samsonov, who's very, very young. Pittsburgh, and, they've still, I don't think you can count on a team like that when you have Crosby and Malkin. They've got Jake Gensel will be back healthy, but, you're relying on a guy now in Jari who started out the year very, very good last year. I think he was even an all-star because he was so hot to start the season. And then I think he just completely tailed off down the stretch. I think he had like a 901 save percentage the last 2 months of the year.
Pittsburgh loves these young goalies who come in out of nowhere and basically play for like 2 or 3 years, play really well, and then just like completely fall off the map.
Right. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe he's the new Matt Murray and they just get this young guy who they just roll with him and it does well. But you also run the risk of having a guy who runs out of steam in a compressed season like this with Jari. So, I think Philly is a team you look at. They seem to be on the come up. They already are a very good team. They should keep on getting better as guys like Provorov and Konechny and the goalie from Philly, who I won't say his name because it.
Say it.
No. Carter Hart.
Carter Hart.
Yes. No, I have a brogue instead. I switched one out for another.
Carter Hart.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's a team that's going to be loaded in terms of it being maybe the primary roadblock to the Bruins, but you kind of look at Boston's road, and again, we could revisit this in February, and they could be in 5th place, and Crosby's vintage Crosby, and the Capitals still have a great veteran core, and they're still playing very well with the guy like Samsonov in net. But I don't think it's going to be a situation where the Bruins are viewed as maybe underdogs in this division. I mean, they're still got a very, very talented roster that should get better as the year goes on and guys like Pastrnak comes back. So I still think they're probably going to be a top 2 team in the East, but I still think the competition is going to be pretty close throughout the year.
It's going to be close, but I think the Bruins are favored to win or come in second in this division. A wise man once said history affects perception, and that wise man was me. I just made that up and said it.
Nice.
People probably said it before, but I'm saying it now. You look at this, you look at the teams, as you mentioned, Pittsburgh, Washington, 2 Eastern Conference powerhouses the past, decade, really.
Mm-hmm.
Washington's had the Bruins number for what feels like forever. Pittsburgh's always been a tough out, except in 2013. The rest of the division, I mean, Philly obviously is on the rise right now. They're very good.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at Pittsburgh and Washington, which I think is causing people the most stress. They're both on the come down. They're not – I don't see them as teams that are emerging. They're still going to be tough outs. They're not going to be easy, but I don't think they are. If this was 2015 and this was your division, you would be scared out of your mind.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have the Rangers, you'd have the Washington, you'd have the Capitals, you'd have the Penguins. I think this is different, though, because this is now, and those teams they shouldn't scare you at least as much as they, have in the past. But to me, as you said, I think the main competition will be Philly. That's the team that I think we're all looking at. That's the team we expect the Bruins to have the toughest time with. I would also circle the Rangers. Again, they're on the come up. They're a team that, has a lot of good young talent. You're going to see Lafreniere 8 times this year, which will be really fun to see, by the way. That's going to be a blast to watch him as much as we'll get to see him. And the other team is the Islanders. They're always in it. They always find a way. They're annoying. They're pesky. They're always there. They find a way. They're consistently boring, but they consistently kind of win. So that could be another team.
People always forget that they were in the Eastern Conference Final. I had to look back at this past. It feels like this whole year's been a blur. But I look back and think, oh yeah, it was the Islanders and going up against Tampa in that series. So again, they're not riveting to watch really, but the results kind of speak for themselves, right?
The results speak for themselves. So when I look at this, I see a division that is good. Going to be tough competition. There's the easy teams will be New Jersey. Buffalo, there's a chance that they get hot at some point, but I just don't see it with the rest of that roster outside of Hall and Eichel, and like maybe Dahlin. But that's a team that I find kind of easy. The rest will be kind of tougher. I think the Bruins are favored to be 1 or 2. I think if you're the Capitals, Penguins, Rangers, and Islanders, you're fighting for those last 2 spots. So I think it's going to be a 4-team battle for those 3 and 4 spots. So competition-wise, I mean, it's funny, you look at it. Is this easier than the Atlantic Division, or is this harder? I think it's easier because you don't have the Lightning, and you don't also have the Maple Leafs, who, we can make jokes about them all the time. At some point, they're going to have to, overcome them at some point.
I think if you're the Bruins, you're still happy you don't have to play them, going through this year. I mean, they're still, regardless of how much the Bruins have had that number in the playoffs, it's still always a tough out, and they're still a team that you expect is going to still get, better and better as the year goes on, or as the seasons go on, with kind of the young core they have in place. And, give them credit, they made moves that I think address some of the issues on the team. I'm not talking about, Joe Thornton or Wayne Simmons or those guys. I don't know how much those guys really, I don't know how much they really move the needle. Like maybe Joe Thornton's a solid kind of bottom 6 guy, but they get a guy like Brody, who I think solves a pretty serious issue on their D-core. A lot of it's going to ride on how Frederick Anderson plays, because I mean he just looked completely gassed last year. So you wonder how they
almost like they should have a competent backup goalie.
Yeah, which that could be an issue this year. I mean, the fact that I think you're going to have a whole bunch of back-to-backs. I mean, the last thing you want is to have him be gassed going into the playoffs here, which is why I think the Bruins have a leg up on a lot of these other teams, is that when you have Tuukka Rask and Yaroslav Halak, and you have a schedule that's going to have a whole bunch of back-to-backs, 3 and 4s even, or something like that, it pays to have both a great starting goalie and a very, a legitimate starter as your backup, who can, take some of those reps away from Rask and keep him fresh. So I think that's going to mean a lot, especially in a year like this, where, again, fewer games, but you kind of look at how many days are allotted between January 13th and May 8th, and you kind of do the math a little bit and realize that they're squeezing a lot of games into kind of a short period of time. So.
Yeah, it's funny. I just wrote down why Rask Halak tandem will be huge for Bruins this year. I mean, that you just explained it. Like that's going to be huge. I think in those back-to-back games, when you can roll out 2 legitimate goalies any night, I think it's going to be absolutely huge. Now, we're obviously not factoring in how COVID affects these people, because I think that's going to be a whole nother thing. And we'll get into taxi squad stuff later on as training camp kind of gets going on January 3rd. But I think, this is easier than the Atlantic Division, I think, because, again, you don't have the Lightning, you don't have the Maple Leafs. And, again, the Panthers were a team up and coming in that division. So we'll see. I mean, you look at the Central Division, the Lightning better win that division by 100,000 points.
Oh, they're going to smoke everyone, yeah.
They're going to face – their toughest out will be Carolina.
Yeah.
And then maybe Nashville. Like, it's not a hard division whatsoever. So my other take on the division, obviously, I think competition-wise, it's easier than maybe the Atlantic Division would be. And playing, every other team, I guess, in the league. But what this division is not great for, by the way, as Jeff Israel pointed out on Twitter, it's the Wednesday night rivalry, or it's the NHL and NBC division.
Yes.
For sure. But going along those lines, is there any matchup in there that you look at and say, oh, that's a rivalry game? Oh, that's a good one for the Bruins, from the Bruins perspective.
Yeah.
The answer is no. Historically speaking, Bruins Flyers, if you're going back to the 70s, I guess, yeah, that's great. And like the 2010 Winter Classic, Marco Sturm, the dagger, and the Flyers at Fenway Park, and suck it, Bobby Clark. But I mean, the Bruins and Caps had a couple of good games last year. I don't see a matchup in there that I'm like, oh, that's going to be good. And by the way, they're going to get good as the season goes along.
Yeah, these teams are going to hate each other.
They're going to hate each other. They're going to create rivalries. Like, this is not – they don't need a reason to hate each other. They're going to play each other 8 times a season. They're going to hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't look at any from the start. Like, Bruins Lightning has a spark to it now. Bruins Canadians, Bruins Maple Leafs. Always has that little fire under it. Sometimes a big fire.
Yeah.
There's none of those teams in this division that I look at and go, oh, man. Now, again, though, as time goes along, it'll happen. Now, I ask you, your expert opinion, who in there becomes the Bruins' main rival? Who is the team where they have the craziest battles? I mean, you remember last year with the Lightning, right before the season stopped, you had high-scoring games, fights, you had everything. Now, I don't know if anything in there lives up to that, but who comes the closest? Because I have my pick. And I'm
I mean,
interested to hear yours.
I mean, it's definitely a couple of teams. I mean, I think Capitals always gets pretty heated. The Rangers games always seem to go off the rails, especially the last couple of years. I mean, was it last year when Marchand got into a fight with Lindgren? Remember, like he like roasted
Yes.
him in the post game thing too about something or other. So you got like Tony DeAngelo, who everyone wants to punch in the face anyway.
I
So like
know.
that,
There's that too.
that factors into it. I'll still probably say Philly just because I think the writing's on the wall that both those teams are probably the two top dogs in the East. But I think kind of it's one of those situations where, yeah, they don't have maybe the set rivalries that I think probably casual fans probably know. You know, I think even casual fans know Boston, Montreal, and they go at it. It's, you know, it's primetime TV. But I think, especially in the East, you have enough big markets that once these teams stop playing each other, and it's not even the fact that the Bruins are playing, you know, Philly 8 times in a regular season. It's also the fact that there's going to be a lot of like baseball series kind of scheduling. So it's going to be, you know, the Bruins play Philly. There's a huge scrum. There's a fight. There's, you know, a late hit or something where, you know, words are exchanged and then they play 2 days later. And, you know, like as soon as the puck drops, it's going to go haywire again. So I think that's kind of what the NHL strategy is, at least for now, is in the East, you have enough big markets and enough of just that natural kind of, you know, hate that kind of brews between these teams that I think you're still going to get a lot of riveting matchups. And then who knows down the road where this whole division is going to be kind of flipped on its head. Is it a situation where if the Bruins get to the, you know, the next round of the playoffs, are they playing the Maple Leafs for the chance to go to the Stanley Cup Final? Do they play the Maple Leafs in the Stanley Cup Final? Like, it could happen, which that would be, I think, hockey like nirvana for everyone. I think Bruins and
Everyone.
Maple Leafs fans would be horrified, but
Everyone else would kind of
because
get
of the
sit back and watch.
implications. But I mean, if that's how you end a season, then it's well worth it. I think the NHL is already doing backflips because, barring the you know, them having to do something really drastic in the all Canadian division up north, you're still going to have like Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews play each other like 9 or 10 times a season, so they're already pumped. But
Yeah.
I think even in the East, I still think you're going to have, regardless of who the Bruins play, it seems like kind of trouble follows the Bruins whenever they play any of these other competitive teams. That I'll go with Philly, but I think there's going to be a lot of interesting kind of matchups as the year goes on.
So I think when it comes to competition and closeness to games and results, it'll be Philly for sure, because I think we expect that to be the two teams at 1 and 2. I think fireworks, it's Washington. I think that is the team where you're gonna have the most fireworks. You have Tom Wilson, you know, you have the history there. I think that's gonna be the one. I mean, remember the tweet that Pastrnak put out saying that Wilson was like the best goal scorer in the NHL, and we all thought he got like abducted in the team hotel. So
They
I
captured
think that
they captured him by the coffee bar in the lobby.
yeah, they got him. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. But I think that's going to be the team where you're going to see the most entertainment, so to speak. But again, I think you're going to have good games against Pittsburgh. I'm very interested in what the Rangers are and, you know, what they're going to be. I mean, on D, you know, you have these offensive defensemen. You have DeAngelo. You have Adam Fox. Are they actually good? Like, that's the thing.
I think you're going to see a lot of like 6-4, 7-5 games when they play the Rangers. I think that's Rangers. I think are going to score in bunches, but their decor is a little suspect a little bit there. So, and they got 2 very good goalies, but 2 very young goalies too. So I think Rangers are like a year or 2 away from being like legitimate contenders. I think it's going to be a year. If you're the Rangers fan, you're going to be pumped because even if, you know, they're flawed a little bit, they're still going to be fun as hell to watch. And you still realize that they've got a lot to give, but I still think those games are going to be fun as hell because I think it's going to be a lot of really high scoring kind of play from that team.
Going to be very fun to watch them. The other thing you mentioned is obviously the prospect of the Bruins and the Bruins and the Maple Leafs, or the Canadians, or whoever,
or the
in the Stanley Cup,
which would be horrifying.
Which would be awful. No one wants that. In the Stanley Cup Final, Bruins Maple Leafs would be the best, though, obviously. But it kind of hits on the whole idea, and we'll get into we'll play around with the Bruins Maple Leafs Stanley Cup idea, but it kind of plays into this could serve as the example to other sports, because I know the NBA for so long has been rumored to want to try this, and that's play the finals as the 2 best teams, not necessarily the best team or the team that comes out of each conference, but like the 2 best teams,
right?
Just in general, you rank everyone 1 through 16 and you let them play, and the NHL might find, because I mean, the past couple of years, the Stanley Cup, has not been between two teams who are necessarily anywhere close to rivals. You never have rivals meet in this
No.
in the Stanley Cup. And in other sports, obviously in the NBA, you have teams like the Warriors and the Cavs going back every year. But even that was not that contested a few of those years. It would almost be better if it was like the Warriors and the Spurs, or the Warriors and the next best team.
And also, like, the rivalry between the Cavs and the Warriors only like became good. It's because they played each other 4 times in a row. Like that.
Yes.
That's a natural rivalry. It's not one that on paper. The NBA is tougher to gauge, right? Because I think it's so much of a player-driven kind of thing that I think you just look at those teams like, all right, it's LeBron and Kyrie against Curry and Thompson. Like, that's enough to naturally get you pumped up. But when it's Stars Lightning, it's like, oh, I mean, these are 2 good teams. Should be a good series, but it's not. It doesn't get you pumped up. Like,
it doesn't get you pumped up. And even like Bruins Blues, like obviously, it was exciting for Bruins fans or Blues fans to go into that series because your team's in the Cup. But I didn't necessarily look across the ice and say, oh, the Blues. Oh, this is it ended up becoming very contested, and it was a solid enough series. And just like with the Canucks, I mean, the Bruins and Canucks had no prior rivalry before, but obviously things got very heated and a rivalry kind of was created. But going into it, it was not like, holy crap. So I think the NHL would kind of love to see a conference final be the Stanley Cup final, where it's the Bruins and the Lightning, or the Bruins and the Maple Leafs, or you look out west and maybe it's Vegas and St. Louis are in the same division. That wouldn't make sense. But like Vegas and
Colorado. Oh, we can't do Colorado. That one sucks too. Is that Colorado and Vegas are, I think, coupled together because
they are
2
coupled
teams
together.
are loaded. But that would be one that if it was the Stanley Cup final, I don't know how crazy the fan bases are, but you still got 2 very, very talented, fun teams to go. Like that would be better than even Tampa and Dallas, which no one really even watched that Stanley Cup.
And now they're in the same division. Maybe a rivalry will be created.
Yeah.
Tampa and Dallas in the same division. But let's get into, as we end this show, we'll get into the Bruins and Maple Leafs idea of the Stanley Cup final, because I think that is the most fun. Can you imagine what that would be like? Like the hype. You would need to put fans in there. Like,
oh yeah,
I feel like there are at least 100,000 people on each side, fans who would say, we do not care about COVID. We will go in those arenas and we will cheer as loud as we can. You can put us in bubbles. You can put us in masks. Just we want to be there. Like, that would be crazy for the Cup. Oh,
I mean, I think Gary Bettman would be doing cartwheels if they got any situation.
And they're going to a Game 7. It's going to a Game 7.
Imagine if it just ended like in 5. It wasn't even close. Like, it was a pretty like pedestrian. Every game was like 3-1.
Yeah, 3-1. No penalties really, just kind of back and forth.
But I mean, the way those 2 teams always seem to play out these series. What would happen though is that there's like every dog has its day. It would be the year that the Maple Leafs finally get over the hump is in the Stanley Cup final, which would be the worst.
That would be the most devastating thing.
Yes.
Ever.
I would have to I think log off Twitter. I think I would have to I would have to get rid of it. Be like, you guys can find me on Foursquare because I'm switching social media channels. The deluge of chirps that I get on Twitter from Maple Leafs fans, it would be rough.
It would be so bad. And you just think of like all the jokes and all the making fun of them for the past 7 years that we've done. For us, it's been the past, few years on Twitter, because I don't think we were, big in the Bruins community on Twitter back in 2013, but we still made jokes to our friends and stuff. But you think back to all the stuff, all the shit that's been said, that's like, that would be the worst, because it would all come back to bite us. It would all come back to bite us. And the jokes would have to go. And I guess that's sort of like how the Yankees felt in 2004 with the Red Sox.
Yes.
Like, that's essentially what this is kind of brewing into. Right? I mean, the Bruins aren't winning, championships every year. And, the Maple Leafs are still making the playoffs. And sometimes when they're not losing to a Zamboni driver. But
yes, which will definitely start Game 7 if the Bruins are going to bring in David Ayers on the taxi squad. It's going to be the secret weapon. It's going to be the secret. Yeah, he's not even going to play. He's going to be in warm-ups. And he's going to be staring over at the bench
He's just gonna be at center ice, just like in his goalie stance, like hunched over,
No,
just staring at the Leafs end.
You know what it's going to be? The Bruins, are going to try to get Tom Brady again, and he's going to say no, as he always does. And David Ayers is going to be the Game 7 Fan Banner captain.
Oh, that's gonna be hot. That is going to be something.
Just in full goalie gear, just sweating as he's
burns a Maple Leafs flag.
Yeah, exactly.
But I could see it. I mean, if I could put money on the fact that the Stanley Cup will be Bruins Maple Leafs, I would do it in a second, just for the fun of if that actually happened.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, you go to Bet Online to do it. You got to do it there, obviously. But yes, the idea of that remotely being a chance is enough to make me so excited for this NHL season. That if you can't find anything to be excited about, COVID's got you down, maybe you lost your job, all that stuff. What should get you to May 8th is there's a chance the Bruins and the Maple Leafs could play in the Stanley Cup Final.
I mean, let's be fair. After the past year, we've had crazier things can happen than the Bruins playing the Maple Leafs. So I mean, it's actually it's not like a daydream scenario that you imagine of like, imagine if the Bruins played the Habs or Toronto for the Cup. How wild that would be. That would never happen because of our divisions, but there's a chance. Of course, it's going to now be like, I'm trying to think what would be the worst, like least interesting. Like it would be the Florida Panthers against the Winnipeg Jets, and Gary Bettman is going to be beside himself. But
that could happen anyways in a normal time. It would be you'd have to do like Arizona and like Winnipeg that would be like the worst possible. And
the Flames.
Yes, or the Flames. Arizona and Calgary, though, that's what's gonna happen.
Yes, of course.
That is like you'll have some fracacta weird two teams that you'd never want to see in the Stanley Cup Final. It'll be like
Darcy Kemper just on a run.
Darcy Kemper goes wild.
Yes,
because that division in the West, you have Vegas, St. Louis, Colorado. I'd say 1, 2, 3 in no particular order, and then
just stealing everyone's lunch money.
You have San Jose, Minnesota, LA, Arizona, Anaheim. That should be Arizona, but they lost Taylor Hall, so I don't know. San Jose has talent. They suck, but they have talent. Minnesota, Spoke Z is always saying Minnesota is going to have its day, and we're going to know it. Maybe this is that year. I don't know. But at any rate, that is the divisions, and that is how the Bruins stack up. So I predicted them to finish. I mean, it's 1 or 2. I'll make my official prediction as the season gets closer.
Mm-hmm.
I hate when I say, they're going to finish in first place, because I sound like such a homer, and I sound like such a, the Bruins, because last year I picked them to lose in the first round to Toronto. So I was wrong, but I don't know. I don't know if they're going to finish first. And I don't want to be the one to be like, they're going to finish first. But at any rate, those are the divisions. Very excited hockey's back. What are you working on at BSJ that people can look forward to?
Yeah, I think right ahead of the holiday break, I think we're working on a predictions post. I think it's always good to drop one before you can really even get into training camp, just because it's great to them.
That's when those predictions, you just cross them right off the list. Like day one of training camp, that prediction's gone.
It's good when you can do it ahead of time before camp, and the cold, hard reality of setting a roster kind of falls in place. And it's good to have, just so that people can then screen cap it and like post it on your feed like by May when shit goes haywire. So I'll be working on that. A few other things. I know Cam Neely is going to be speaking with the media today on Monday.
So you already spoke to the media when you heard this. So you already know what he said. We don't know what he said, but you listeners do actually know what he said.
So I imagine we'll have some stuff from that, and who knows, maybe a few more Zoom calls on the horizon. So we'll have all the latest stuff over at bostonsportsjournal.com. So subscribe over there at BSJ. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Conor Ryan _93.
Do all that and follow follow Boston Sports Journal at all times, and follow CLNS Media as well, and our YouTube page, Bruins Rinkside. Make sure to go give that a subscription, because Connor and I will be making lots of appearances on that, and we'll have player interviews and stuff on there too. So it's exclusive just for you guys. You'll love it. But with that, this has been Bruins Beat on CLNS Media. You Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week, and if you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. I'm just realizing.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas because it's happening this week. So, anyway, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and have a great and jolly rest of your week.